Hello, my name is Owen, and welcome to a quick review of Funny Story by Emily Henry. What I want to do is give a brief overview of the book's about, tell you the things that I liked, and tell you the things that I didn't like, jumping straight into it. This is the third Emily Henry book that I have read, the other ones being Happy Place and Beach Read. Good old romances, you know, and this one's set up is that our main character, Daphne, is engaged to Peter. Peter. Except he cheats on her with his childhood best friend, and he calls off the wedding. Sad. And then she moves in with her former fiance's, new fiance's ex-boyfriend, Miles. And they live together, and they're both heartbroken. But there's a bit of tension there. There's a bit of love, a bit of romance. And then the plot ensues. So I listened to this book in audiobook, which is the second Emily Henry book I listened to in audiobook. Why it turned out that way, I don't really know. But you know what? They started giving me free books on Spotify, audiobooks, right? So you know what? Might as well take advantage of it. I did want to read the book, and it was given it to me for free. And by free, I mean I was already paying for Spotify anyway, and it gave it to me. So to me, it's free. But how do I rate this book? Now, let me just set the tone for you a little bit of how I feel, okay? Because in general, I love a good romance. It's not always my preferred genre of reading, but every once in a while I like to dip my toes in it. I like a little bit of fluff. I love a good rom-com, right? Film. And I like a good rom-com book. I do enjoy it. And I think like I said, I read two Emily Henry books before. I enjoyed both of them. What I enjoy about a good romance is two things. The romance, obviously. It's got to make sense. It's got to have chemistry. It's got to have a little bit of fun. Second of all, we need like a fun premise that coincides with it. You can't have one or the other, right? If you don't have a good romance and you just have a good premise, then it's not a romance book and it kind of fails in its purpose. If you just have a good romance but no like additional premise, funness, then it's really just kind of boring to read, right? Because we already know romance. We've seen romance billions of times. It's the premise that makes it fresh and new. And then the romance that keeps it in the genre and makes the genre. You know what I mean? So my problem with this one is I think it has a great premise, right? And this is a screenwriting term for those of you out there. This is the promise of the premise, right? When you see like a trailer of a movie, it gives you a premise, and the promise of that premise is that when you see the movie in its full length, promise will be fulfilled, that this is the movie that you're going to see. This is what's going to happen. This is the hijinks that will ensue, right? So the promise of this premise is that this is about heartbreak, right? Last minute heartbreak, a wedding broken off for, they had their own love story going on, right? Childhood friends finally connect each other. That's another plot of a romance. So being on the opposite end of that, the heartbreak end of that, and getting stuck with your ex's new girlfriend's roommate, you're both heartbroken. You're expecting a little bit of drama of like, oh, the ex is going to come back and realize they made a mistake. They're going to try to win each other over. Which one of them is going to go back to their ex, right? If they're going to go back to their ex, right? They're both, they were both dating people who are now dating each other. Does that make them compatible? Where's their friction, right? And there is a little bit of that, but there's not really a lot. It feels like there's a lot of these ideas that Emily Henry had for these books, and they were mostly just like afterthoughts in almost every single aspect, because obviously we start off with a heartbreak, but we don't really explore that area of heartbreak, right? And maybe you don't want to write a sad book. That's completely fine. But they kind of get over this very quickly, and I feel like the romance of the two characters starts pretty quickly, right? Instead, they take this in a direction of leaning more towards rom-com. We're like, well, we're going to pretend to be a couple because we got invited to their wedding. I'm like, okay, fine. We'll take it in this direction. We'll get away from serious heartbreak. We'll go into, we're going to pretend to be a couple and go to our ex's wedding, and we're going to fall in love that way. Classic rom-com-y type tropes. Except they don't really explore that too. They don't really explore like leading up to their ex's wedding and like them faking being a couple, because they become a real couple fairly quickly, or at least real romantic feelings start fairly quickly, and there's not really a lot of hijinks of them pretending to be couples, right? Like I thought it was gonna go. And it's unfortunate because I really like when Emily Henry did this in their other two books, but she likes to layer relationship trauma or relationship drama outside of the relationship to couples, right? So like in Beach Read, it was the main character, like her father, right? Her father left her, or her father had this secret life and left like this house. And she's like, in this house, she's like, I love my father. I thought he was a great husband. He had a secret life. He had a secret wife. What's going on here? And it's the book is about the romance, but it's really about like this relationship with her father and like the secrets he was hiding and like all that, exploring that. So the romance is kind of a vehicle to get us to this real exploration of like her relationship with her father. And then the same thing with Happy Place as well. The unique thing about that book was that it had like the unique timeline. We would flash back to when they were a couple, kind of flash forward to where they're faking to be a couple. It's like that coupled with the romantic interest, in this case, like his family obligations, him wanting to be home with his mother and all that stuff. This one, it kind of felt like that was there, but it was tacked on, right? Because we get trauma with her father, and her father doesn't have a great relationship, and he appears like 70% of the book, and like that's really explored. But it became, like I said, it came 70% in the book. And then she has some issues with her friend. Her friend, when she broke up with her fiance, kind of sided with her fiance, and she was like upset about that. There's a scene where she's crying about that. But it was like, it came out in like the 60% mark of the book. Like, and then she's not really a character in the book. There's not a lot of drama, tension between that friend in real life. The friend does not appear in the book, just like from afar, she's sad about it. And then there's this arc of like her finding new friends, which I feel like is good, but it's not really, it doesn't really have the meat there. The meat of the story is all the afterthoughts. The relationship with her father, the not wanting to burden her mother by moving back home. It was there, and there was like some moments where like, this is the dramatic part of this exploration of the story, right? This is the part where she yells at her father, but it was tacked on. And there was no wacky premise of rom-comminess, and the trauma kind of just didn't feel like it. And worst of all, and this is the worst crime of them all, Miles, he didn't have it. He didn't have, as the kids would say, the riz. I wasn't buying it. I wasn't buying their connection. I wasn't buying that he was at all attractive. His only personality trait was that he was a nice guy. Oh, he's so personable. Look how many friends he has. He's so nice. And he has a beard. Those are his entire personality traits. And they fell in love too quickly. It wasn't an interesting relationship when they were together. There wasn't really any personality like tensions that like tension or like conflict. There wasn't any of that. It was just kind of two bland people getting together, and they had one of the vehicles of this plot was like the leading up to this readathon date, because after the readathon she can go home, she can leave this town, say goodbye. So it's a countdown to it, but there was no drama with the event. It didn't really go wrong. And when it arrived, it was this big, every chapter was 78 days until this. The event just happened, it went well, it's the end of the book. Overall, I was disappointed with this one, guys. None of the things fired in the way that they needed to be firing on, right? Romance didn't buy it for me. The additional drama, like family exploration, didn't work for me. There was no wacky hijinks, rom-com hijinks. And it was well written. Emily Henry's a great writer. This story just didn't tickle me that way, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So, my least favorite of the three, if that wasn't abundantly obvious. I'm sure like devoted fans of the genre might enjoy it just because it's a run-of-the-mill entry, but it's not really special. And having read the other Emily Henry books, I expected a little bit more. I expected a little bit more interesting in premise, either the emotional drama that I liked from Beach Read with her father relationship, or even just like the timeline flashing back and forward in Happy Place. I thought was enough to spice that up as well. There was just nothing to make it beyond a bland romance. And there was moments at the end as well where, like I was saying at the beginning, where the conflicts of the exes coming back, it comes into play. Not to say it doesn't come into play. It does come into play. But it came into play too little too late. And I wanted that to be hammered more and more and more and more, rather than just the occasional like, oh my God, my ex is here. And he says like a one-liner and she thinks about it for one page and it's back to like, and then we're going to the store together, and his sister's in town. Didn't buy it, guys. Didn't buy it. If you're going to be spending your hard-earned money on it, I would say get it for free. If you got Spotify, listen to it for free. I listen to it at 2 times speed. That's a way to do it. Side rant, 1 time speed, so slow. It's not like oh, well, you didn't like the book because you listened to 2 times speed, you probably missed some details. No, have you ever tried to listen to an audiobook on 1 time speed? They speak like this. It would take you literally the entire length of the book. Who's listening to a book for 18 hours? Not me. Certainly not me. I'll listen to it in 9, thank you very much. But that's all I got for you guys. Let me know what you thought in the comments if you read this book or you're thinking about reading it and I just dissuaded you. I didn't hate it, guys. It was just fine, and I'm not looking for fine these days. I'm looking for great, aren't we all? But be sure to like and subscribe if you like the video and want to see more like it in the future. And as always, thanks for sticking around.